The city was cold, made of metal and stone. Spaceships came and went from the skyport above, leaving trails of smoke in the sky. But no one looked down, not at the ground, not at her. She sat on the side of the market alley. Her body was thin, her alien skin pale and bruised. Her large golden eyes were filled with dust and sadness. Her clothes, once made from royal silks, were now torn and dirty. She used to be beautiful once. Now she was just another forgotten thing lying in the shadows, every day. She stood up and walked slowly through the crowded streets. She bowed to everyone she passed. "Please," she whispered, "take me as your servant. I will do anything. I can clean, I can cook. I won't speak unless asked." But they just kept walking. Some laughed, some looked away. Some said cruel things under their breath. "She's broken," one alien merchant said. "No good." "Probably diseased," another spat near her feet. She didn't cry. She had no tears left. She had begged every kind of alien rich traders, warriors, travelers, even pirates, but none of them even paused. Her body was too weak. Her looks were ruined. She was useless now. Then one day, as the twin suns began to set, casting long shadows across the ground, she saw someone different. A man, a human. He wasn't rich. His boots were worn, his jacket dusty. He held a bag of food and walked slowly, as if tired from a long journey. She stood in front of him, head down, hands shaking. "Please, human. I beg you," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Take me as your servant. I won't ask for anything. Just don't leave me." He stopped. Her heart almost stopped too. No one ever stopped. The man looked at her. His eyes were calm, unreadable. He looked at her face, her hands, her bruises. Then slowly, without a word, he opened the bag of food and handed her a piece of bread. She stared at it. Was it real? Was it a trick? Her hands moved slowly, afraid he would take it back. But he didn't. She took the bread and ate like she hadn't eaten in days. Crumbs fell and her fingers trembled, but she finished every bite. Then she looked up again. "I can follow you," she said. "I won't cause trouble. Please let me stay close." Still, the human said nothing. He turned and began walking. She didn't know if that meant yes or no, but she followed. She walked a few steps behind him, her feet bare and aching. He didn't stop her. They moved past shops, past lights and noise, to the edge of the city. There was a small building, simple, quiet, a place not meant for guests, but it was safe. It was more than anything she had now. He opened the door and walked inside. She waited outside. Was he going to come back and say no? But the door stayed open. She stepped in. The place was small. One bed, one table. He placed the rest of the food on the table, then pointed to a corner. "You can rest there," he said softly. His voice surprised her. It wasn't angry. It wasn't cold. It was kind. She walked to the corner and sat on the floor. She didn't ask for a bed or a blanket. She knew her place. "Servants don't ask. I can clean this room," she offered. "Please let me stay." The man didn't reply right away. He watched her as she curled up, hugging her knees. He wanted to ask her who she was, where she came from, but he could already guess most of it. She had once belonged to someone cruel. Her scars said enough. And now, she was left to survive on the kindness of strangers, strangers who didn't care. But he cared. And he didn't know why yet. Outside, the night grew colder. Inside, silence filled the room. She closed her eyes, still afraid she would be thrown out in the morning. Still afraid this was a dream. But for now, she was warm. She had food. And someone had finally looked at her not as trash. not as a tool but as a living soul. She didn't know his name. He didn't know hers. But something had begun. The first night passed in silence. The alien girl didn't move from her corner, not even to stretch. She sat with her knees hugged to her chest, arms wrapped tightly around them, as if holding herself together. Her body ached, but she didn't complain. The human man didn't speak much. He ate a small meal at the table, then tossed a blanket toward her. She looked at it like it was treasure. Slowly, with trembling hands, she pulled it around her thin body. It smelled like old fabric, but to her, it was warmth she hadn't known in months. In the morning, she woke up early before the man. She sat by the wall, still and quiet, waiting for his orders. He didn't give any. Instead, he walked past her, washed his face in the small sink, and brewed something that smelled strong. He glanced at her, then placed a piece of bread on the table. "Eat," he said simply. She hurried forward, bowed her head, and whispered, "Thank you, master." He froze. "I'm not your master," he said calmly, but firmly. She looked up, confused, "But I belong to you now. I'm your servant, your property, if you'll have me." The human sat down, staring at her. "Who told you that?" Her voice cracked. "Everyone." He didn't speak after that. She finished the bread slowly, as if afraid it would disappear. After breakfast, she began cleaning without being asked. She used a rag to wipe the table, picked up small things, even dusted shelves with her own hands. The human watched her, his arms crossed. "You don't need to do that." He said, "But I want to," she replied, head still down. "If I don't serve, I'll be thrown out. That's how it always was." He didn't stop her, but something in his chest tightened. This girl had been through something terrible, trained to obey, punished for being useless, and now terrified of being alone. She worked until her fingers turned red from rubbing the floor. Then she finally sat in the corner again, still quiet. He poured her a glass of water and placed it near her. "What's your name?" he asked. She didn't answer. He asked again, softly. "You do have a name, don't you?" She shook her head. "I don't remember it." He blinked. "You forgot your own name." "I wasn't allowed to speak it," she whispered. "My old owner said names are for people, not for servants." He leaned back, stunned. The silence stretched between them. Again, but this time, it wasn't cold. It was heavy, full of words left unsaid. That evening, he went outside. She followed, walking a few steps behind. The market was busy, and she lowered her head each time someone passed. She was scared someone would recognize her. Take her back, at one food stall. The human handed a few credits to the seller and bought 2 warm rolls filled with spices. He gave one to her. She didn't take it at first. "I can't," she said. "Food like this, it's for masters, not me." He didn't argue. He simply broke the roll in half and offered the smaller piece. She took it, and for the first time, she smiled just a little. On the way back, she walked beside him, not behind. No one noticed, but the human did. He said nothing, but something had changed. Back at the shelter, he finally spoke. "You need a name." She blinked. "But you said I'm not a servant." "You're not," he nodded. "That's why you deserve a name." She was quiet for a moment. Then, almost shyly, she said, "You can name me if you want." He thought for a moment. Then, he said, "Lyra." She whispered the name like it was made of gold. "Lyra, yes," he smiled. "It means light in an old language." Her lips trembled. "I don't deserve that," she said. He stood. "You deserve more than you know." That night, she didn't sleep in the corner. She still didn't ask for a bed. But she slept closer to the wall heater, with a blanket wrapped tightly around her shoulders, and the name Lyra echoing gently in her mind. She had been owned, hurt, left behind, but maybe, just maybe, this human wasn't like the others. The next morning, the sky over the spaceport was gray. Rain dripped from the rooftops, and the city looked more broken than usual. Inside the small shelter, the girl now called Lyra was still sitting near the heater, the thin blanket around her shoulders like armor. The human moved around the room quietly, fixing a cup of hot tea. He poured one for himself, then paused, hesitated, and poured a second cup. He placed it near her without saying a word. She looked at it like it was a test. After a long pause, she reached out and took the warm cup in both hands. "Thank you." "Again," she whispered. The human nodded. He didn't smile much, but his silence never felt cold. After drinking, Lyra began cleaning again, like she always did. She wiped the window, arranged the few tools on the shelf, and even tried to fix the broken light switch. Her movements were slow but full of effort. At one point, her sleeve slipped down. The human's eyes caught something: long, deep scars running across her wrist and forearm. Not fresh wounds. Old, faded, but still very real. He didn't ask. Simply placed a soft cloth on the table and said, "Use this instead." She pulled the sleeve back quickly. Her eyes dropped to the floor. "I'm sorry you saw that." He sat down across from her. "You don't have to be sorry. Someone hurt you." She didn't answer. "You want to tell me?" he asked gently. For a long time, she was quiet. Her hands clutched the cloth tightly. Then, in a low voice, she said, "I was sold when I was still young. Not even grown yet." The human's heart sank. "They said I had a pretty face, that I could be trained. I was sent to a merchant family. At first, they dressed me in fine clothes, but only for display. I was never allowed to speak unless spoken to. If I cried, they took food away. If I disobeyed, they used the whip." She lifted her eyes, but they were hollow. "The scars are from my first escape attempt. I was caught. Punished after that, I stopped trying." "Then why were you abandoned?" he asked softly. "Because I became useless," she said with a sad smile. "One of the merchant's sons cut my face when he was angry. My left eye got damaged. They said no one would pay for damaged goods, so they threw me away at the spaceport. Like broken trash." The human clenched his jaw. Lyra placed the cloth down. "But it's okay. At least now I'm free." He looked at her. "You still bow to me. You still call yourself a servant. Is that freedom?" Her lips trembled. I don't know how to be anything else." Silence returned. Not heavy, this time, but fragile. The human finally stood. He walked over to a storage box and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. It was a small first aid kit. He opened it and returned to the table. "Let me see your back," he said calmly. She flinched. "Why?" "You're hurt," he replied. "Some of those wounds were never cleaned properly. They could get infected." She hesitated. Her hands shook as she slowly turned around and pulled the back of her shirt down. The human's breath caught. Her back was a roadmap of pain. Whip lines, burn marks, and strange slave brand symbols etched into her skin. He couldn't believe someone had survived all of this and was still walking. He didn't speak. He simply cleaned the marks gently with wet cloth, then rubbed healing ointment across the worst areas. Lyra sat still the whole time. Her eyes were wet now, not from pain, but from something deeper. No one had ever touched her like this. Not to hurt, but to heal. When he was done, she whispered, "Why are you doing this? I'm not your responsibility." He leaned back. "Because you're not a thing. You're not an object. You're a person." She blinked. "But I'm not even human." He looked at her. "Doesn't matter." Her lips parted, but she couldn't find any words. Later that evening, Lyra sat on the floor, still holding the soft cloth. She didn't try to clean. She didn't ask for tasks. she just watched the human as he worked on a small mechanical device. Finally, she said, "Can I stay here? Not as a servant, but just stay." The man looked at her. "You already are." And for the first time since she was a child, Lyra felt safe. Not owned, not bought, not used, just safe. The days passed slowly, like soft rain on broken stone. The girl who once hid behind silence now moved more freely inside the shelter. She still avoided loud sounds, still flinched when footsteps passed outside. But there was something new in hers, something that hadn't been there before. She smiled once. It wasn't big, wasn't long, but the human saw it. He had seen many things in his life: war, cruelty, betrayal, but this quiet smile from a girl who had known only pain. It hit deeper than any battle wound. One morning, while the suns were still low in the sky, she sat near the window, hugging the blanket he gave her. The human placed a warm drink beside her, then sat across the room. "Do you remember anything?" "About your childhood?" he asked gently. She looked at him, thinking. "Just flashes. I remember a river, blue flowers, and a soft voice calling me something sweet. But I don't know if it was real or just a dream." He nodded. "You never told me your name." "I don't have one," she said softly. "They never let me keep it. My old owners gave me numbers. One called me Dirt. Another just whistled." The human looked at her for a long time. Then he stood up, walked to his bag, and pulled out a small, worn book. Inside were names of stars, constellations, and ancient words from old Earth languages. He flipped through it until he found one. "Lyra," he said. "How about Lyra?" She blinked. "Lyra. It's the name of a star," he explained. "Beautiful, bright, quiet, but strong. I think it suits you." She said the name again, like she was testing the sound. "Lyra. I like it." He smiled for the first time in days. "Then it's yours." Lyra touched her chest gently, as if placing the name inside herself. "No one's ever given me something before. Not like this." From that day forward, she said her name out loud at night before sleeping. She whispered it when she woke up. She even practiced writing it on the table with her finger. Over and over. Lyra, Lyra. It was more than just a name. It was a beginning. Later that week, the human returned home late. He had been out trading scrap parts and repairing old tech. For credits, when he entered the shelter, he smelled something strange pleasant. Lyra was in the corner, cooking something over the small heating plate. She turned when he walked in and looked nervous. I tried to cook," she said quickly. "I used the leftover roots and that dried powder you had. I hope that's okay." He walked closer, sniffed the pot, and smiled. "Smells good." Eyes lit up. They ate together, sitting on the floor. No fancy dishes, no celebration. But for Lyra, it felt like a festival. After the meal, the human leaned back and asked, "What would you do if you could go anywhere?" Lyra tilted her head. "What do you mean?" "I mean," he said, "if you weren't a servant, if you were free, what would you want?" She had never thought about that. I don't know. Maybe a garden. A place with plants. No machines, no shouting. Just quiet. He nodded. "Good choice." She smiled, but then her face fell. "But I'm not free." "You are now," he said. Lyra looked at him, unsure. "Even if you say that, I still feel like I belong to someone. It's like a chain in my heart." "Then we'll break that chain," he replied. "How?" "By starting small," he said. "First, you have a name. That's step one." She nodded slowly. "Then what's step two?" He chuckled. "We'll figure that out tomorrow." That night, as the city lights faded into darkness, Lyra stood near the mirror in the corner. She looked at herself not with shame, but with curiosity. She whispered, "I am Lyra." And for the first time, It felt true. Her face still had scars. Her body still carried pain. But now, she had a name, a space of her own, and a human who saw her as a person, not a tool. It wasn't a perfect life, but it was a real one, and it had begun. The morning felt too quiet. The wind outside the shelter was sharp, blowing dust down the alleyways. Inside, Lyra was wiping the table gently, humming a soft tune she had heard once from a street musician. She didn't know the meaning of the words, but they gave her comfort. The human was fixing a broken drone on the workbench. Sparks danced from the metal as he tightened the wires, and the little bot beeped once in protest. Lyra laughed quietly. "You're good at that," she said. He nodded. "It's just about patience." Lyra smiled. "You have a lot of that?" But before he could answer, a loud knock hit the metal door 3 fast bangs. Hard and angry. Lyra froze. Her hands dropped the cloth. Her smile vanished. She stepped back slowly, her body trembling as if touched by fire. The man stood, calm, but alert. He reached for the plasma wrench on his table and walked toward the door. "Stay behind me," he whispered. She obeyed instantly. The door creaked open, just enough to show the outside. 3 figures stood there, 2 alien males, rough and armored, and a tall female wearing a red scarf over her shoulder. All 3 looked dangerous. "We're looking for something," the female said, her voice like ice. "Or should I say, someone." The human didn't answer. The taller alien stepped forward. A runaway, small, gold eyes. Slave brand on her back. "Have you seen her?" Lyra gasped softly behind him. The human didn't move. No one like that here. "She was seen near the zone," the female replied. "If you're hiding her, you'll be breaking at least 6 laws." "I don't care about your laws," the human said quietly. The female narrowed her eyes. "You're not from here, are you?" He shrugged. "Does it matter?" They stepped closer. The man raised the wrench just slightly enough to warn. "You can leave now," he said, "before I make you." There was a long pause. The aliens looked past him, trying to peek inside. But Lyra had already slipped into the back room, hiding in the corner with her arms tight around her knees. Her heart was racing. Her old master's voice echoed in her head. "Useless thing. You are mine. Always mine." But then she remembered the human's voice. "You are not property. You are a person." Her fear began to shake. Outside, the female spat on the ground. "She's worthless anyway. If you're protecting her, she'll only bring trouble." Then they turned and walked away, their boots thudding down the path. The human closed the door slowly and locked it. When he turned, Lyra was still shaking in the back room. He knelt down beside her and placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "They're gone," he said softly. "You're safe." "I didn't mean to bring danger," she whispered. "I thought they had forgotten me." He shook his head. "People like that never forget what they think they own." Tears welled in her eyes. "You should have given me back. You could have told them I don't return people." He said, "You're not an object, Lyra." She looked up. "But they'll come again." "Let them," he said. "I'm not afraid of them." "But I am," she said, voice breaking. "They hurt me. They can hurt you too." He stood, walked to the window, and watched the street. "Let them try." Lyra stared at him in disbelief. No one had ever stood between her and danger. Not once. Not even her own family. Later that night, while the city slept under flickering lights, Lyra sat near the heater again. But this time, she wasn't curled up in fear. She was thinking, "Why do you care?" She asked him. The human didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Because someone once saved me when I was broken too." She tilted her head. "You?" He nodded. "Long ago. I was left behind after a battle. Everyone thought I wouldn't survive. But a stranger pulled me out of the fire, gave me water, gave me a second chance. Lyra was silent for a moment. Now, he said, I'm giving you yours. A tear slid down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. She had always believed her life would end in chains or worse. But now, someone had stood up for her, protected her, named her. She wasn't a servant. She was something. Else someone worth saving. And that changed everything. The night after the strangers came, Lyra couldn't sleep. She sat near the heater, holding her knees close to her chest. Her eyes stared at the floor, but her thoughts were far away. The human was still awake too. He was cleaning the tools on his bench, one by one, making sure each item had its place. The silence between them wasn't heavy this time. It felt thoughtful. Finally, Lyra broke the silence. Why didn't you give me back? The man looked over. Because you're not theirs to take. But I was a servant, she said softly. That's what I was trained to be. That's all I ever was. Serve, obey, stay quiet. He put down his tools. Do you really want to live like that? She hesitated. It's what I know. When I serve, I feel safe. I don't have to think. I just follow. The man pulled up a chair and sat near her. Lyra, being safe and being alive aren't the same thing. She looked at him. You're not a servant here, he said. Not to me. You don't have to ask to eat. You don't have to clean to be allowed to stay. You're here because I want you to be, not because I need anything from you. She nodded slowly. Then, what am I? You're Lyra. A simple answer. But it felt like a door opening in her heart. She sat still for a while, her fingers moving nervously across the floor. I think, she said quietly, I want to know what else I can be. The next day, the human took her to the edge of the city. Not the crowded markets, not the noisy port, but the outer ring, where the wild grass grew between the cracks in the old road. There, a few vendors traded strange items, plants, seeds, and creatures from other worlds. Lyra had never seen these things before. She moved slowly, eyes wide, stopping near a table where a small glowing flower sat in a bowl of blue sand. It's beautiful, she whispered. The vendor smiled at her. Touch it gently. She did. The flower opened slightly, releasing a soft golden mist. She gasped, smiling. The human watched her carefully. It was the first time he had seen her act curious. Free, as they walked back, Lyra asked, Can I grow one of those someday? He looked at her. Why not? She shook her head. Because I don't know how to do anything. I don't know how to live. He smiled. That's the thing, Lyra. No one knows at the start. We all just learn. One small step at a time. Back at the shelter, Lyra picked up the cleaning cloth as usual. But then she stopped, looked at it, and put it down. The man raised an eyebrow. Everything okay? She nodded. I don't want to clean today. I want to draw. He blinked. Draw. She reached into a drawer and pulled out a small old stylus and a data tablet he had once tossed aside. The screen was cracked, but it still worked. She sat on the floor and began drawing shapes, circles, lines. Then, slowly, the image of the flower she saw that day. The human didn't say anything. He just watched, quietly impressed. Later that evening, she showed him her work. It's not good, she said quickly. He looked at it. The lines were shaky, the colors off, but it was real. It was her. I think it's perfect, he said. She smiled. Not a small smile this time, but a full one, eyes shining. That night, Lyra sat on the bed, not the floor. The human had insisted. You're not sleeping on the ground anymore, he said. You're not trash. She hesitated at first, then slowly sat on the edge of the bed, her body stiff. He handed her a soft pillow. Rest like you deserve it. She laid down, her eyes staring at the ceiling. It still feels strange. Strange isn't bad, he said. It means things are changing. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you." For what? For seeing me? That was the night Lyra stopped calling herself a servant. She didn't say it out loud, but in her heart, something had changed. She wasn't someone's tool. She wasn't a body for work. She was a person, and maybe, just maybe, she was learning how to be free. Morning light slipped through the cracks of the window, soft and golden. For the first time, Lyra didn't wake up scared. She stretched her arms slowly, blinked at the sun, and felt something new in her chest piece. She looked around the small room that had once been a cold shelter and now felt like a home. The human had already gone out. He had told her the night before that he'd be gone for a few hours to trade scrap for food and fuel. Lyra sat up and smiled. The bed was warm. Her body was still weak, but her spirit had grown stronger. She walked to the mirror, stared at herself, and said, "I am Lyra." It still felt strange, but it felt real. Then she noticed something on the table. A folded scarf. Light brown, clean, and soft. She picked it up. There was a note beside it. "For you. Not because you owe me anything. Just because you deserve warmth." Her fingers curled around the fabric. She had never received a gift before, something given without force, without expectation. It almost made her cry again. But this time, the tears were happy. Later that afternoon, the door opened. The human walked in carrying a bag and looked surprised when he saw the table cleaned, the tools sorted, and a strange smell coming from the small cooking unit. "Did you cook something?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. Lyra nodded shyly. "I tried. It's not perfect, but I wanted to do something because I wanted to, not because I had to." He smiled. "That's the difference." They sat down together and shared the simple meal, some root stew and warm bread. It wasn't fancy, but it felt more special than anything Lyra had eaten in her life. After they ate, she looked at him seriously. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course," he said. Lyra took a breath. "Why are you alone?" He looked out the window. "It's a long story." She didn't push. But after a moment, he spoke. "I used to be a soldier, then a mechanic. I traveled across galaxies, worked on ships, fought in some ugly places. I lost people, I lost trust, so I stopped staying anywhere. Just moved from place to place, like I was floating." She nodded slowly. "That sounds like how I felt." "Maybe that's why we met," he said, his voice soft. They sat in silence. For a while, both watching the light fade outside. Then Lyra stood up and walked toward him. She didn't kneel. She didn't bow. She stood straight, hands clenched, nervous but brave. "I want to stay with you," she said. "Not as your servant, but as something else." He looked at her gently. "What do you want to be?" "I don't know the right word," she said. "I just know I feel safe here. I feel seen. I want to be part of whatever life you live. I want to help, laugh, grow, maybe even plant a real garden one day." His eyes didn't leave hers. "You want to be family?" She nodded. "Yes. If you'll let me." He stood up and for the first time placed a hand gently on her shoulder, not as an owner, not as a master, but as someone equal. "Lyra," he said, "you already are." Her heart swelled with something she couldn't name. Warmth, belonging, a feeling she had never known. She didn't cry this time. She just smiled. A real smile, strong, honest. That night, they sat on the roof, side by side, under a sky full of stars. Lyra pointed to one of them. "Is that the star you named me after?" "Yes," he said. "That one, Lyra. Bright and distant, but always there." She reached for his hand and held it, shyly. "Thank you for giving me a new life," she whispered. He shook his head. You made that choice. You stepped into it. And together, they sat in silence, not the silence of fear or pain but of peace. Two broken souls, now healed, now home.